Hi, welcome to another episode of Brand Specified, the only marketing podcast focused on helping manufacturers grow sales through increased specification. Today, I would like to welcome our guest, Sarah Caylor from 3 North. Sarah is a purchasing agent, and let's face it, most folks, A, don't know what they do, B, don't understand the power that they have, and C, don't understand how to market to these folks to grow sales. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you because most people don't understand what purchasing is all about. So before we dig into that, can you tell me a little bit about what your history is? How did you start Porter Street Purchasing?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. I had just moved back to Richmond in 2006, and I was here a couple days and needed to look for a job. Moved back with my daughter after a divorce from Pennsylvania. And I was at a friend's house, and her husband called to say that the person they hired for the job of Porter Street Purchasing, the procurement person, quit on her first day. And so I said, well, I need a job. And he said, well, great, come on in and meet everybody. And I did. And here I am over 15 years later. So I just kind of fell into the position. But my background prior to this, I'd been in management years prior to that. And so had not done directly FF&E purchasing, which is furniture, fixtures, equipment, and things. But within my jobs, in all of them, I did some form of purchasing. So it was a natural fit for me. And so I started right away and just dove into it. And here I am.
That's wonderful. So really bringing that strong business and management background to this position, I would imagine, is very helpful. It seems as if you have multiple interests to juggle.
Yes, it really is a multifaceted position. You do need to. It was lucky that I had the love of design. I'm not a designer, but very interested in it. So it was a natural fit to do purchasing for it. But you really have to, the business side is extremely important for it because you're managing P&Ls, you are negotiating pricing. So anyway, yes, a business background is extremely important, I think. And that's one thing that a lot of folks say that have a design background and they are in their businesses that they start, that they don't know the purchasing side and they didn't learn that side, the business, when they got their degree. And that would have been super helpful. So I always chat with people about that you need to learn that side of it as well, not just the design, especially if you want to open your own business.
Oh, I think that is such great wise words.
Yes.
So many designers are extraordinarily talented people, and converting that talent to a monetary reward can be very, very difficult. And we need designers and architects in this world. So we need them to be successful.
Yeah, it's super important because what happens is, I think when they do start their business, all their time is doing admin and they lose their time to actually do what they love. So if you're not prepared for it or know how to do it, then you're just not doing what your trade is, your practice. And so you find a lot of people who may get out of it because go back and work for somebody else because they want to actually design and not just manage and do admin work.
That's really where you come in. So tell us about some of the projects that you guys work on.
Sure. So we do, Porter Street works on residential, commercial, hospitality, educational. We really do anything, any type of project. I would say right now, multifamily, I kind of pretty much comes under commercial, but we do mostly hospitality, and we're working on currently the Tides Inn in Irvington, Virginia. We're working on several projects at Pinehurst in North Carolina. Then we've got a couple larger residents we're working on. I'm working with 3 North as well as a design firm outside of 3 North and purchasing for them. And so just a lot going on, but any type of project.
Yeah, I love that. I think 3 North really does just exquisite work, and the range is really impressive. So who are all the people that you work with? I know that you work with the design team, whether it's an interior designer or an architect. Who else is involved? Like, how many people sit down at the table with you, or do you have to consider as you're working on a project?
So initially, when we start a project, I come in and meet the entire team, which can be the developer, the GC, the architect, the interior designer, the management group, whether it could be a local person or it could be Hyatt representative. But then throughout the project, I typically am just working with the interior designer. And then as we get further along, then, I'm back in the mix working to meet deadlines and things. And I'm working closely with the GC in order to make sure that our install dates are met and getting the property open and ready. So the GC plays a big part. And I'm talking to my clients, obviously, all the time. But I'm not so much in the mix of the interior designer and architect are with the broader team a lot more during length of the project.
Yeah, so in that, it sounds like you're balancing time, cost, and quality on these projects. So getting everything there on time. What are the biggest challenges that you've been facing? I know that COVID's kind of turned everything on its head, but life goes on. So what are you facing?
So budget is always a challenge before COVID or after COVID. So just working with manufacturers and finding a quality manufacturer to make sure we're meeting our budget. But I would say after COVID, during COVID, and I don't see it changing anytime soon, it's really the biggest challenge for us is the inflation and the logistics problems. So we set budgets maybe a year ago, and prices have increased almost 15%, I would say. Freight costs are through the roof. Don't see them coming down anytime soon. It's just really challenging. I've had projects be canceled because of it, all the construction costs and things. So trying to meet the budget is very challenging. And then just trying to get product even to our projects in time is very challenging. So I would say I spend the majority of my days now. A lot of it is logistics and working to get our product moving around.
Yeah, that's a lot of challenges. It is something I don't think a lot of people think about is just freight costs really can drive up the overall budget for a project.
Yeah, it's huge. Right now, it's running at about 18% of the cost of goods sold, which it was typically running at 10%. Well, maybe 8%, but I mean, it's definitely a lot higher. And we cannot, we did some projects to go overseas, and the pricing was great, but the container cost were $100,000 when they had been 10. I mean, it was just absolutely insane. Just very challenging. So we've got to find U.S. manufacturers. Case goods, that's not so hard. Soft seating, not that hard. But case goods, it is challenging to find U.S. manufacturers that have the capacity to do it because there's very few of them. And so they don't have enough people. They don't have enough time. So the labor shortage really hurts us as well, like it does everybody. There's not enough truck drivers. There's not enough warehouse workers trying to get things installed. There's not enough staff. So yeah, our world is very challenging, like everyone's is, I think. But
Yeah, that is. I mean, it's really interesting because I always think of, your position as being just like, okay, I'm going to work with the manufacturers, get the best pricing, work on timing, and work to make sure that the designer or architect, that their vision is created with whatever product, since we know they love custom. But to think about all the other factors that you have to include, it's a lot to juggle.
Yes. So I would say most people say, they ask me what I do, and I say, oh, I purchase I buy furniture, essentially. Oh, that's so fun. I'm like, yes, it's really fun. You get to look at pretty things, but number one, you don't get to own it. And two, buying a piece of furniture is pretty easy. All you have to do is push a button, send a purchase order. It's all of the work that goes into it after. It's not hard to put things out to bid and to. I've worked with manufacturers now for so long, so it's pretty like we have a good core group that we work with. Always open to new ones, of course, but so getting the product bid and putting the PO out is not that challenging. It's everything that goes into it afterwards. Like you said, the timing, the making sure that it's a good warehouse, making sure that it gets to the property in a timely manner, making sure the installers show up. The heavy load is after you place the PO. The fun part is ahead of time. You get to meet great people and manufacturers. I just went to High Point for a hospitality. It's called High Point Hospitality, and just met with great vendors, met with other purchasing agents and designers in the country. It was super fun. So that part of it's great, looking at all the products and knowing what people can do for you. That part is just so fun. And so that's the easy part.
Well, you talked about your core group of manufacturers or vendors. Tell me how do you get into Sarah's inner circle? Like, what do they do that really puts them, really gets your trust and your design team's trust?
Right. So it's really hard because there's so many manufacturers reps out there, and you want to work with as many as possible. And I would say, just because of how long I've been doing it, that again, it's just have been the customer service level that they give us, or it might be whether the rep is local and how often I see them. It is obviously pricing, but it's really, I'll give you an example of something that happened for a project this past fall. So for one of our hotels, we ordered all the soft seating from a manufacturer through one of my go-to reps. And they had, after 2 months of having the PO, they called and said, we can't do this. We can't meet your deadline. I was like, oh my God, you've had this for 2 months, but they just couldn't. They didn't have the manpower. They just didn't have the capacity to do it. So my rep, who is amazing, went and found me another manufacturer who would do it for me in time to make the project work. Like, that's just unheard of, just to go find somebody within 2 days to do it for me, and somebody that she trusted. And so, I mean, it's just things like that. Like, you have a relationship with people and you count on them, whether everything goes smooth and easy and you love their product, or they really have your back and will help you. I've got a carpet manufacturer rep. He's amazing. Like, he is just always calling the factories and pushing for us and doing everything he can to get the timelines moved up, or staying on top of the carrier that's on the water and when it's coming into port. Some manufacturers will just, once you give them the PO, they just let it go. So it's ones that really stay involved with me, the customer service. And it's just, we've had a relationship over the years. And then I have manufacturers that will say to me, we go through these, meetings or lunch and learns, whatever it is. And they're like, well, how do we get in the door? And I'm just very honest with them. We say, well, it's not that we're not going to look at your product, but we're also not going to just stop working with somebody just because we should change. And, if something's not broken, we're not going to just change vendors. So it's tricky. It's hard. You want to give everybody business. But the other part of it for me, Susan, is that I'm not a specifier, right? So it's a lot of it is in the designer's hands, who they want to specify. It's more, I have more input when it's put out to bid to 3 manufacturers, say. And it's typically, I might put it out to bid with one that I haven't used before, and then 2 that I really know. And then that just comes down to, if there are 2 great ones that I know, then it just comes down to really lead time and pricing. But I don't have a whole lot of input if the designer, just says they want something, I'm just saying this restoration hardware, then that's who we will use. We don't want to change the design aesthetic. Some of the larger purchasing firms, if it's not in budget, they may just find something similar to purchase. But Porter Street doesn't do that. We go back to the designer. If it's not in budget, ask them to reselect, or, we'll help them try and find something different. But we don't, they really have the power in what is being purchased from that aspect, because we don't want to change the design intent and just go pick something else,
Yeah, I think I do actually hear a lot about that, because I think when we're talking about something that's maybe, is one of those hidden, something in a wall system, or something, that is used to actually create the building but is hidden, we can see a lot of swapping out of specs unless it's a specific performance, being that that maybe they're using a certain material to achieve passive house or LEED certification. But otherwise, if it's more of a commodity, it can get very easily, that spec can get changed. Anything that the designer or architect, I feel like, can touch and is like a living surface within, I would imagine is pretty hard to get them, to substitute something without them really noticing, because they're all about the details.
Exactly. A lot of times I'll say, oh, I saw this. It's pretty comparable. Will you look at it? And they will, but they're not, it's so funny. It's more of a, I would say, like an upholstery. I mean, you can't just swap it out because of a cushion, right? It might be a down versus a poly, or, so you can't just swap it out for the look. There's a lot more that goes into it. I mean, it's different if it's a side table. Of course, you can find another little side table that would look just as cute as the other one. But, when you're talking about case goods, I can swap this out, but it might not have soft closed drawers on the one that looks similar. So when you have to go reselect, there's a lot that goes into it. It's just not the look,
That makes total sense, Sarah. It sounds like you really do have to work, especially in the design phase, to help bring a lot of product awareness to your teams. That you may have to offer them substitutions, or, check this out, it might work for you. Is that something that is really only in a crisis, or do your teams kind of look at you and say, okay, you went to High Point, what was cool? What should we know about?
Yes. So what I did was, typically they will just look to me, not so much for the aesthetic of something, but they will look to me for vendors to go look at. So so when I came back from High Point, I did a presentation, gave them the vendors that I looked at and why I thought they should take a look at them. And what, a few of them I knew we would never specify at 3 North. But I still put it out there, but then I highlight ones that I really think that, knowing 3 North designers' taste and aesthetic choices, I recommended them. But, usually when they're selecting for or specifying for a project, they only ask me about vendors to look at, not so much about particular pieces. Now that's, if it comes down to, equipment, they'll say, who do we use for refrigerators, or who do we use, and then they will specify within that manufacturer because we've had good experiences with them. So it's all over the place, really.
Well, it sounds like one of the things that I'm hearing is that the manufacturers, if they want to be considered by 3 North, I mean, first of all, it's the type of product they have. It sounds like you have a pretty good filter on what that 3 North sweet spot is for your design teams. And certainly when I look through the portfolio of projects, everything meets a certain level of quality and taste for sure. I mean, I think the portfolio is really consistent in that way. And good communication sounds like another really big thing that you guys need. And the reps to really understand the full sale, from not just getting the spec and getting the PO, but all the way to the installation. You need them involved. It sounds like there's a lot of challenges in the market, and having that rep really be with you as a partner is important.
Sure, absolutely. And, the reps that I use, if there is an issue after installation, they go to the site and they see firsthand what's the issue. Or I had some, just recently for an install, I had some furniture that got scratched up because it was moved a couple times. Well, that wasn't my rep's fault or the manufacturer's fault, but they went right over there and took care of the finishes. So they are a partner for us. That's one of the reasons I stay with the reps I do. And we do, a lot of our work is in Virginia, North Carolina, down to Florida. So for me, having these local reps that can go to, the site, to the property to see any issues, or also to see their product and be close to it and just be celebrated as well, and they can see what's been installed.
I love this point because I don't think a lot of times that manufacturers understand fully that taking that step once the product has been installed to check back in, see if there are any issues that they can handle, even as you say, with something like people moving furniture and it getting scratched. Obviously, that's not within their control, but it is something that you do need their help on. And that's really, one of the things that we do at Epiphany is we interview specifiers on behalf of our clients when they're looking to see, why did we get spec'd in this job, or why didn't we? A lot of times we hear things like, 3 years later, it just, I still didn't know how to maintain this product. So putting things in like, once it's installed, what can you expect? And having that information both on your website, but as part of the sale, sounds like it might be something that you all would find valuable.
Absolutely. And again, this just goes back to, I've got my core group of people I work with, because they are there after the sale, and they'll help me in any way, whether it's been 6 months, 2 years, not that they're going to pay for everything, but, they're the ones who, it's their product. They want it to show well in the space as well. So it's an aftermarket partnership, really, and why I stay with the people I do, because they've all been around for a long time. I have, and I mean, if they want us to specify them again, you have to stay with us in the aftermarket as well. I mean, there's that's the easiest way to say it. And that's why I have my core group of people and the relationships that I have.
I love that term, the aftermarket relationship, really being there and being present. So that's really cool. I don't think, we've been interviewing folks for years and we hear a little bit about that, but really making it something that manufacturers can really help their reps adopt as best practices. It sounds like it's very, very valuable. Are there any trends in how your team is finding products? I know that a lot of firms went to remote working, not so with 3 North, because you guys are all hardcore, which I really like. But you do have teams further afield, so not everyone is in Richmond. Have you noticed any trends of how design teams are finding products?
We don't really even have that big of a library anymore. It is all online, and the designers will then reach out to reps for a finished sample, whatever it is, or a swatch of fabric, a memo sample. So it's all online. And here's a good example. So let's just say we haven't had rep meetings too much, just actually because we are kind of in the office, out of the office, and everyone is so busy. So we used to have all the time, like when we were back at Corrugated Box, we'd have so many fabric reps come in. And it's just overwhelming. I mean, our library, that you used to see, my gosh, it was just overloaded, huge. Who could go through all those fabrics and choose things? It was a daunting task. So what I've noticed that the designers here are doing is that they are using the material bank. And I'm not that familiar with it, but it's an online essentially an online fabric store. You can go on and find every manufacturer that is registered with them and order swatches. So everything is in one place and you can sort however you need. So you're not physically putting in a box all the blues or all the plaids. I mean, you're doing it all online and they find it so efficient and they send it out immediately. So that's what they're doing. And really not having too many fabric reps come in anymore, just because that's so easy to do. Furniture is a little bit different, but still, it's all online. The only thing that they use the library for mostly is hard surface things, whether it be a tile, a brick, different things like that, but not so much material, fabrics and wall coverings. They'll just see something they like online and they get the samples in.
So that's interesting. So if a vendor comes in and they want to put a bunch of fabric samples in your library, you guys just prefer to get everything online. That makes total sense because you can sort and say, I want to order everything that's in this range of blues or greens. We specify so different. We don't use the same product all the time. So for us to have a library of things, and we do a lot of custom too, right? Custom wallpapers. It's so easy and inexpensive to do digital, paper now. So there's no need really for the library because we're always specifying something different, and not to keep it around. So we do not have manufacturer reps come in anymore to our library. As they did in the past, they would update things. We just don't do that. We don't keep catalogs and we keep very few actual material swatches and things. So with the reps that do bring in samples, are they picking them up? Do you guys have to recycle them? Like, how do you keep with a diminishing, a never diminishing, which I think is a big trend, library? And especially if we're talking about, we just want to have hard surfaces. What are you doing with all the samples? I understand that Material Bank, you can send them back, but there are other vendors that I'm sure that you are getting significant size samples from. How Do you guys just put them back in the library? Do they pick them up? How does that work?
Both. Some we keep, and others they pick up. Yeah. So just say like furniture, Vanguard furniture rep. I had a bunch of wood finish samples, and after we were done with them, we just returned them. Because they're expensive. I mean, once we have to pay for that, we definitely keep them. It's not that we don't have anything, but and typically, all the fabric and wall covering, they don't want them. You used to have to send them back, but they don't ask really. The cost to send things back now and move it around through mail it's not worth the cost, right? So, we'll recycle them.
Right. So that sounds like if we think about, a manufacturer 5 years ago would be really working on getting something in your library and, inundating you with as many samples as possible. And now things have moved online. So I understand, and I feel like most manufacturers get what design teams need online in terms of, they need to really have their website set up so the designer can find what they need easily, understands how to order a sample if they can't get it through Material Bank or some other place, or how to customize, how to contact a rep. How about for you? Do you have any manufacturers that actually allow you to track a product so you know where it is in the system in terms of, has it been created? Is it getting ready to ship? What could manufacturers do on their websites that would actually help you be more successful?
For me, I totally use inside sales reps or customer service. For me, that's the easiest way than having to constantly go online for all the different products to see. So I just get emails from manufacturers all the time when stuff is shipping or with updates. And that really works for me instead of going online because I order so many different companies. If I had to go on every website that I work with and track things, I mean, it's certainly helpful to utilize it sometimes, but for me, it's more just constant communication from the inside team of a company that's letting me know what's going on. This is delayed, this is shipping here, here's the tracking. For the administrative side, that's what I like. Here's from the design side, and I certainly can't speak for them, and I'm just using this again as an example because it's easy. The material bank, because everything is in one place, it's just saves them so much time. So I know that I had never even heard of some of the fabrics they've used on manufacturers that they've used on a couple of projects of late. If they didn't have the material bank, they probably wouldn't have. I mean, maybe we don't have a local rep, or maybe the rep couldn't get in, or I don't know, whatever the reason is, but we're actually being exposed to so much more by having a material bank. I know it costs the manufacturers to be on those sites. Some find it profitable, some don't, I know, and pull off. But from our side, it's great. Here's another thing. Like I when I went to High Point and I met with a manufacturer that I have always known and loved and purchased from, they told me, they were asking, well, what takes the designers, the longest? And I said, oh, just picking art. We do a lot of custom art, but just in general. And she said, well, if you just send us the scope of the project or the room, or give us some precedent images, we'll go and pick all the accessories for you. Stuff like that is amazing because they're interior designers who do it. And so, they could put a whole wall together for our designers, have them approve it. And that just takes so much time off of going to so many websites and looking for 10 accessories when this company, which is Global Views, will go pick it for you with their design team based on your aesthetic in the room and everything that you've done. So that's really helpful. again, not having to go to so many different websites, right? It's kind of, I don't know how to explain it. It's just maybe, again, it's partnering with people who can bring your vision to life, and just not having just one space to go to, right? Instead of there's so many websites, so many reps, so many,
I think you're talking about a trend that I am starting to see where there is a group of almost concierge consultants in this industry. We have lighting consultants, now we have some stone consultants, and just bringing services to your design teams that help them save time and be able to, deliver sort of, I would guess, an elevated package almost to their clients, because they're really hiring experts or engaging with experts that are going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for them so they can work on what they do best, which is the designs and not chasing every single detail.
Exactly. And it all goes back to kind of how I sell Porter Street, is that I'm a partner on it. I'm part of a team. So everybody does what they do best, right? Again, it goes back to learning in school that, there's a whole lot more to it than designing. But that's why I like to be part of a team. Everybody does what they do best. And so you're not being bogged down with the purchasing. You're not being bogged down with picking every accessory. You're not. And so you partner with a manufacturer. That's really how we look at our manufacturers too. We partner with them on a project so the designer is not so bogged down with everything, and everybody's, got their role on the team. So it's not just buying from them. And I'm not talking about one-off things, but I'm saying when we're doing a hotel, we call it partnering with a manufacturer for, the duration of it. Or we're going to partner with Global Views to assist with all the accessories, and they come up with the plan. They lay it out with their designers. There's a reason, hopefully we're behind, who we're partnering with and what services they bring, instead of just shipping and here's your product, right? And be done with it. We want more out of our partner.
Yeah, absolutely. I think manufacturers do well, especially when they hire reps that have some type of experience in, that aren't just about selling, but maybe have been a designer or at least worked in a firm, or, somebody that really has a deep knowledge of a deep understanding of what it takes to ease the workflow of the design teams, because it's a different than just delivering a product, right?
Absolutely. And it's the same thing, with the manufacturer. When the designer, let's say, designs a bed, right? A case good bed. And, they come back with their expertise. Well, you really shouldn't have this height on it, or you really shouldn't have that. Their expertise is what they'll come back to us and say, you need to change this, or you need to elevate this, or whatever it is, because they're building it. That's their expertise. So it's important, again, to partner with somebody who's going to give you that information of why they think something will work or why it wouldn't work. On a chair, the designer didn't put a stretcher. Well, we should know that, but the manufacturer might say, this is hospitality, you might want to put a stretcher on that. It's going to get heavy use. You might want to do different legs, or something, whatever that is. So
yeah, that's definitely, I think those manufacturers are worth their weight in gold, because designers and architects can't possibly know. They can't possibly be experts on everything.
Right, for sure.
There's just so much to consider. So what cool projects do you guys have coming up?
Pinehurst, we're just doing continuous work on the Carolina Hotel. We're doing a country club down there. We're redoing the Magnolia Inn. That's fun. It's a 10-room little darling little hotel in town at Pinehurst. Just lots of work at the Tides Inn. 3 North, I can't even tell you everything they're working on. Like, they're still busy. They are doing a ton of multifamily. The landscape division's doing lots of cool stuff. There's some things coming that I'm not allowed to talk about yet, but you'll hear about that. They're really cool. And then again, we've just got the whole residential division. So got lots of that going on. So super busy, super busy.
Well, we so appreciate you guys always being such a great resource for us, and the diversity of projects and expertise within 3 North makes it just a gold mine, because everybody is so focused in their, I want to call it a vertical, but in their area, that they bring this really deep knowledge and great perspectives that help our customers really, our clients really reach their sales goals, because now they have a better understanding of what the industry wants from them, which, it's easy to kind of get yourself, you have so many layers between you and the customer that sometimes you're not really truly in touch. And of course, manufacturers really want so desperately to be in Sarah's inner circle and be part of that preferred group of vendors that you would go to because you can count on them. And they simply just don't always know what it is that it takes, even though it seems like, great customer service, but, what does that really mean? So having you guys allow us to ask questions about products and workflows and just sharing so much insight, we greatly appreciate it. Yeah, no, it's been great. You've been really, really, really great. I think we have a lot of interesting, insights for manufacturers who don't always realize that the purchasing agent is going to be somebody that would be at High Point, that would be coming back and making recommendations. I think that in this industry, it's kind of perceived as the design teams go to you. It's like a more of a one-way street, when really it's not at all. But I think the perception is. And I mean, honestly, Sarah, I've had manufacturers say, I don't think a purchasing agent is relevant. I'm like, really? Yeah, because they don't, their reps don't talk about it.
I met several purchasing agents when I was there for the larger companies, and they do make so many recommendations to their developers. Like, they're the key players, really, not so much the interior designer. Because a lot of brands, so, Hyatt, Marriott, whatnot, they all have their standards and things, and a designer is they're designing it, but it's really the purchasing agent who is driving the process, because it's all about their preferred vendors, but also it's cost, bottom line, cost. And, not giving up quality, but the purchasing agent's huge in it. Like, they'll go to the designer or they'll go to Marriott and say, we really think this vendor is who you should use. We've been to the factory, we like them. Their cost is good. So, the purchasing agents are huge for bigger jobs. In my world, I'm more boutique world, so, and residential. So the designer is more the key play. I'm a key player, but the designer has more influence of the product. Whereas, MGM Hotel in Las Vegas, they're going to count on the purchasing agent for 500 rooms to get them the best cost, best quality. So it's all about the purchasing agent.
Interesting. Hey, Sarah, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. You shared so many really interesting insights, from reps really having a role in aftermarket to the way that design teams are finding new materials, the rise of these concierge services that help with workflows and allow design teams to focus on what they do best. And of course, the difference and importance of a purchasing agent, whether they are in your shoes, which is in this sort of very chic, boutique-y world, whether it's hospitality, multifamily, or residential, versus those working for the big brands like Marriott or Hyatt. You've really shared some interesting information, and of course, we love you guys. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.